Hello and welcome back to my channel. In this video today I'm going to be showing you how to make my fancy flower power pumpkin design. This one builds really quickly, so it's really easy to do, and then with all of the flower decorations in the top, they make really nice centerpieces or decorations on sideboards, etc. But yeah, looks really good. There's loads of really nice pumpkin designs out there, so hopefully there's another one to add to the pumpkin patch. Okay, so we're going to need for this pumpkin is your yarn. I'm going to be using this Snuggly Chunky. So this is a 6.5 millimeter. I would suggest a chunkier yarn for this pumpkin. So a 5 or a 6 is absolutely fab. But I am going to go down a size or so in my crochet hook, so I'm actually going to use a 5 millimeter crochet hook for this one, and we're going to do it in this nice creamy colour. So I've taken my inspiration from this cute little squash pumpkin that I found in Aldi. So yes, that's my inspiration for this pumpkin. You're also going to need some stuffing, some toy stuffing, just to stuff your pumpkin with, and then some of your decorations. These are of course optional. You can pop in the top of your pumpkin whatever you like, but I've just bought some autumn themed decorations from the range. So these were really cheap, but these will make a really nice display in the top of your pumpkin. Right, so for this pumpkin today, I'm going to start with a chain of 41. So bearing in mind this is a 6.5 millimeter yarn, and I'm using a 5 millimeter crochet hook. I'll put the finished size dimensions on the screen now, so you can see approximately how large it turned out to be. But if you wanted to make one a bit bigger, you would go up by 6 chain stitches. So you go up to 47, or if you wanted a bit smaller, you would come down, so you go to 35 and so on. But for this one, we're going to do a chain of 41. So I'm just going to do a slip knot, and then I'm going to chain 41. Okay, so we've got our chain of 41, and to make up this pattern we're going to do a 4-row repeat. So we've got 4 rows of a sedge stitch, just with a slight modification, followed by 4 rows of a simple slip ribbon stitch, and we're just going to do that throughout the entire project. So the first row is going to be our sedge stitch. So from the second chain from the hook, we're going to do 1 double crochet. And then in a normal sedge stitch, you would then do a half treble crochet and then a treble crochet all into the same stitch. For this one, we're just going to do 2 trebles. We're not going to do the half treble, we're just going to do 2 trebles, because I just think it makes the stitch pop a little bit more, and that's what I want the texture for the pumpkin. So we're just going to do 2 trebles into that same chain stitch. So in that second chain from the hook, we've got 1 double crochet and 2 treble crochets. We're just going to repeat that right the way along, but we're going to skip 2. So we're going to skip this chain, we're going to skip this chain and go into this one now and do the same again. So we're going to do 1 double crochet followed by 2 treble crochets. Like so, and then we're just going to do that all the way along. So skip the next 2, 1, 2, go into the next one, 1 double crochet and 2 treble crochets. Okay, and just do that all the way along until you are left with your last 3 chain stitches. Okay, so I've worked right the way along my chain. I'm just down to my final chain of 3. So all the way across we should have 13 sets of stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. All with a chain of 2 in between. And then on the very last one, so with our last chain of 3, we're just going to do a double crochet into the very last chain stitch. We're then going to chain one, and then we're going to turn. And we're going to do exactly the same all the way along. So we're going to start in our this double crochet here. So this is the last double crochet that you made on the last row, and we're going to make a double crochet into there. And then we're going to do our 2 trebles into the very same stitch. And 1 and 2. We're then going to skip the next 2 trebles that we did and go into the double crochet here. This one just along there. So these are the top of the 2 trebles, and we're going to go into this one here. So we're going to do the double crochet, and we want to keep these quite tight. Our tension wants to be quite tight for these stitches. And then we're going to do our 2 treble crochets, all into the same stitch. We're going to continue that right the way along, so that again, skip the 2 trebles and go into the double crochet. Work your double crochet followed by 2 trebles in the same stitch. Show you that one again. So miss the 2 trebles into the double, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and there we go. So we're going to do that right the way along, and I'll see you back at the very end. Okay, so I've just done my last one into this double crochet here, and then we're at the end. But to finish this row off, we're still going to miss the 2 treble crochets and do a double crochet right down the side here. So look for your 2 trebles here, and then find the double crochet that you initially did. It can be a little bit fiddly to get in there. Just make a double crochet right in the end, and then we're going to chain and turn, and we're going to repeat that row again. So we've done 2 rows so far. We need 4 in total, so we're going to go across again and back, and then I will meet you there and show you how to do the next 4 rows of repetition. Okay, so I've just about come to the end of doing my 4 rows of the sedge stitch. I'm just going to finish this last row. I just wanted to show you again, just to make sure when you're finishing, you're going to skip those 2 trebles, and that double crochet is right at the bottom there. Just make sure you get into that very end one at the end of each row with a double crochet. Then I'm going to chain 1 as usual. I'm going to turn our work. We're then going to work our next set of 4 repetitions. So the next 4 rows are just going to be a simple ribbed stitch. So if you've never done a rib stitch before, it's super easy. We're just going to turn our work upwards so we can see all the tops of our stitches here, and we're literally just going to go into the back loop of each stitch along and do a slip stitch. So we're just going to pull through, oops, like so. So that move again. So we're going to go through the back loop and gently do a slip stitch. And for these ones, like the sedge stitches, you know, it's good to keep a bit of tension in the sedge, but for the ribbing stitch, we're just going to keep our tension actually quite loose. We don't want this one to be too tight. So back loop, grab the yarn and just slip stitch it through. Back loop, grab the yarn and slip through. So we're just going to do that all the way along. Nice and loose-ish tension. You know, we don't want really big baggy stitches, but we don't want our stitches to be tight. We want them to remain quite loose, because this is going to create our ribbed effect in between our textured part on our pumpkin. So all the way along, and if you've chained 41 to start off with, then we should have 40 stitches. So it might be an idea to also count along as you go, or count at the end, but you should have 40 stitches all the way along. So just slip stitch your way across, and I will see you at the very end of the row. And we've got right to the end of the row, and hopefully if you've been counting your stitches along, you've been able to keep a track. So your very, very last stitch is a little bit sneaky. You might think you're at the end, but counting along as you go is a really good idea, just to make sure you don't miss the very end one. There we go. So we have our 40 in total. So we've got our 40. Obviously, if you was doing a smaller or larger one, that stitch count would be different. So whatever you started with, and you start in the first chain from the hook, so if you started with the 35 and then went down to the first chain on the hook, that would leave you with 34, and you'd have 34 stitches, and so on. And now we're going to do a chain of 1, and we're going to turn our work, and we're going to do exactly the same again, and we're going to repeat this another 3 times because we need 4 in total. We've done 1, so this is our chain, so we're going to be here, back loop only, and pull through, just like a chain stitch, like a slip stitch rather. A 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to count all the way along. And we're going to continue this until we have a total of 4 rows, and then I will see you back when you've got 4 rows. Okay, so I'm almost at the end of my 4th row of the ribbon stitch. So I'm just going to finish off, pulling through, making sure you get that very end one that's hiding there. Always a good idea just to do a stitch count, just to make sure you've still got 40, because if you have managed to lose some, then your work is going to start to get smaller, and that's not what we want. So at the end of this 4th row, we're just going to chain 1 and turn our work, and this is going to be our right side. You can see we're starting to build up our columns here now. This is what we want. So we're just going to repeat the whole process again. So we're going to do another 4 rows of the sedge stitch, followed by 4 rows of the ribbon stitch. So to begin the sedge stitch again, we're going to work in the first stitch. We're going to work our double crochet, so we'll be going through both of the hoops on there, or both of the stitches rather, and work a double crochet followed by your 2 treble crochets. Pull some yarn out there. That's 1 and 2, and then just like we did before, we just turn our work so that we can see we're going to skip 2 stitches, so 1, 2, and work into the next stitch along. And we'll just do the same again. So we'll do our double crochet followed by, our 2 treble crochets. 1 and 2. And that again, so skip 2, 1, 2, into the 3rd one, insert your hook, and we're going to go through both of them. We're not working into the back loop only like we did for the ribbon stitch. We're going to go through both. Pull through for your double crochet, back into the same stitch for your 2 treble crochets. We're just going to repeat that all the way along again, and you're going to do that 4 times. So you will have a repetition of 4 rows of sedge stitch, followed by 4 rows of your ribbon stitch, and then move on to the next step. Okay, so I've got my work laid out flat now. In total I did 70 rows in the end, so each column of your sedge stitch would be 4 rows, followed by 4 rows of ribbon stitch. So that's 70 in total, and because we started with a row of sedge stitch, we've finished with a row of ribbon stitch, so that we can then put them together. And the way that we're looking at it now, if we just pull apart a little bit, we can see where we've got one column of this rib in the middle. So this is going to be our right side. On the other side, you can see we have 2 columns. I mean, you can use this as your right side if you want to, but I want this side to be my right side, so that I've got this one strip of ribbon in between the sections. So we're going to stitch this together now. So whatever right side you choose to use, so I'm using this side, you want that facing you, and then we're just going to fold it over so that we can put it together. So you can crochet it together if you want to, but I'm actually going to stitch mine together. I prefer to stitch it together. So I'm going to tie off my end. So I want quite a long end because I'm going to use this to stitch together, and I'm also going to use it to pull in the bottom bit as well. So we want a really long end, a good, 24 inches at least. I'm going to chop that off, and I'm just going to get my wool needle ready. I can just pull that one out there anyway. So I'm going to use this end to stitch it together and to pull in the end. So I'm just going to thread through my needle. Oops. And I'm going to go through. So what I want to do is I'm going to put these both together equally. Make sure you've got them so they're going to be nice and equal. And I'm going to thread through both of my loops on this side, and then I'm just going to go through one on the opposite side. And that again, I'm going to thread through both on this one, and then I'm just going to catch one on the other side. And I'm going to work my way all the way down to the end, just stitching together. If you prefer to crochet together, then by all means do so. And I'm just going to stitch. Okay, so just coming toward the last few stitches. I'm just catching them equally along. And there we go. And once you got to your bottom, you can turn around. And what we're then going to do is work our way all the way around your work, just catching a stitch, just all the way around, just every sort of centimetre or so. When we pull this tight, it's going to gather it in. And we're back to where we started. We can now pull. Careful not to pull too tight, so you don't want to snap your cord. But if you do, just reattach some more yarn and you can start again, it's no big deal. I'm just going to thread my needle here. So I'm just going to put a few stitches in the end here to keep it together. So once you've pulled it as tight as you can just stick a few stitches in the bottom there just to keep it all together. There we go. Once you're happy with your bottoms nice and closed, you can just knot that in. And this is going to be, this is the inside. So we're just going to make it nice and secure by looping a couple of knots in there, and then, oops. Then we can turn your work inside out. And this is going to be the right side. So now you just need to grab your toy filling and start filling up your pumpkin. Okay, so I've filled up my pumpkin now, so we're going to close the top just the same way that we close the bottom. So I've just added, got myself another piece of yarn with my wool needle. So I'm just going to stitch this in. So you just weave that in a few times. Stitch it back on itself a couple of times just so that it doesn't come undone. There we go. And then again, just like we did the bottom, just catching a stitch also all the way around. I would do them a little bit closer together for the top because we want it to be nice and neat. So just every few stitches also just catch a bit so that we can then pull it in nice and neatly. So once we've found just keep manipulating that around until it pulls in evenly and your gathers are all even. There we go. We want to be leaving a hole in the top for our decoration. So depending on what decoration you're going to put into yours, or if you're going to put a decoration at all, will depend on the size of hole that you want to leave. So once you've got a hole that you are happy with, you can then just stitch these closed. Again, just fix it together with just a few stitches. There we go. Once I'm happy with that, I'm just going to pull this out and then chop her off. So before we decorate, there's just one last important thing that we need to do, and that's just going to do some finger pinching just to really shape this pumpkin. So we're just going to go around, and in the middle of each sedge stitch, we're just going to pinch just like that, just to pull the middles up. And what's this doing? It's just giving some shape to our pumpkin. So it's pulling out a ridge and then also pulling apart the ribbed stitch. It just gives it a really nice shape. So just finger pinch all the way around, like so. There we go. And then we'll give it a nice little ridge in shape, which just looks completely amazing. And then you just feel free to just add all of your decorations.